The last light of the day streamed through the fogged-up skylights of Whitaker Gallery, painting golden streaks on the scuffed hardwood floors. I stood still, inhaling the faint aroma of turpentine, aged books, and forgotten dreams. My name is Claire Whitaker, and yesterday, I inherited what my family considered a financial joke. A fading art gallery tucked between cafes in downtown Portland. I could still picture the lawyer's office vividly. Brass lamps, shelves of unread law books, and the faint scent of coffee masking old leather. My brother Julian, of course, sat smug in his designer suit, sipping espresso like it was a victory toast. To our son, Julian Whitaker, Mr. Langston read, we leave the sum of $40 million, 0 cents, the Napa Valley Vineyard, and full ownership of Whitaker Enterprises. He barely paused. To our daughter Claire, we leave Whitaker Gallery and its contents. Julian chuckled. Guess you get the paint fumes, sis, he said, not even looking at me. At least there's plenty of room for dust. He wasn't wrong. The gallery had been bleeding money for years. Once a cornerstone of the Portland art scene, it had slipped into near obscurity, ignored by collectors, bypassed by tourists. But Julian never understood what this place meant. None of them did. I grew up in these rooms, chasing sunbeams with a sketchbook while Grandpa Walter, founder of the gallery, taught me how to see, not just look. He didn't care about appraisals or market trends. He believed in art with heart. Claire, he'd whisper with a smile, real worth can't always be measured. Some treasures wait quietly to be seen. Now, as I wandered the empty hall, I didn't see failure. I saw potential. A forgotten legacy, and maybe, just maybe, the start of something only I was ever meant to bring back to life. But decades of neglect had worn the place down. The maple floors were scuffed and faded, crying out for restoration. The walls were dull and chipped, patches of old tape still clinging where posters had once hung. Half the overhead lights flickered, or had gone dark entirely. I made my way to the back office, each step echoing through the quiet. It used to be Grandpa Walter's sanctuary, a warm, cluttered place filled with sketches, old catalogs, and the scent of pipe tobacco. But my parents had long since stripped it down, turning it into a makeshift storage unit. Filing cabinets lined the walls, cardboard boxes towered in corners, all covered in a thick coat of dust. Still, his presence lingered. I brushed my fingers across the edge of his old oak desk, now shoved against a wall and buried beneath forgotten paperwork. I could almost hear his voice, telling me stories about the early days, how he opened the gallery in the 1960s with barely more than a vision and a few brave artists who trusted him. There had always been rumors that Walter Whitaker had built a hidden collection, paintings and sculptures so rare they'd never even been cataloged. But when he died 15 years ago, nothing surfaced. My parents searched relentlessly, brought in specialists, scanned the walls, tore through the archives. They found nothing but dust and dated inventory. Eventually, they moved on, treating the gallery like a tax burden. Julian was groomed for Whitaker Enterprises, while I found refuge in art history, curating at places that still believed in soul over status. A sudden draft pulled me back. The gallery had fallen into darkness, and in the eerie silence, something near Grandpa's desk caught my eye. A warped floorboard. Curious, I knelt. There was a knot in the wood, but it wasn't real. With a gentle tug, the board shifted, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside, a worn leather journal and an ancient iron key. The journal was unmistakably my grandfather's. I knew his handwriting, the loops and flourishes. But these pages were different. The lines were rushed, uneven, filled with frantic sketches, measurements, and what looked like fragments of codes. One page stood out. At the top, in thick, urgent strokes, he had written, "The True Collection, for Claire's eyes only." My hands trembled as I turned the page, heart pounding, until my phone buzzed. A message from Julian. "Meeting tomorrow 9 a.m. We'll talk buyers." That gallery won't sell itself. I looked at the journal, then back at the message. Julian had no idea what I had just uncovered, and for now, that was exactly how I wanted it. I returned the journal and key to their hidden spot, closing the floor panel gently. When I stepped out into the cool Portland air, I felt something shift. The gallery didn't weigh me down anymore. It sparked with possibility. Grandpa Walter hadn't left me a liability. He had left me a secret. While Julian prepped to carve up the building's bones for profit, I would be chasing something far more valuable. My grandfather's hidden legacy. At sunrise the next morning, I arrived early. The gallery glowed with soft light, but my attention was fixed on that hidden panel. I opened it again, retrieved the journal and the key, and settled into the quietest corner. My dearest Claire, the first page began. If you're reading this, you've already shown the patience and intuition I always believed in. What I share now must stay between us. I turned the pages breath-catching. Grandpa hadn't just been an art lover. He was part of a hidden network, guardians of lost masterpieces. And the vault? It was beneath my feet. It opens a legacy I've spent my life building. But be cautious, Claire. Others have searched for this collection, and not all with good intentions. The words lingered on the page like a warning. Then a sharp knock at the front door made me jump. Julian stood outside, arms crossed, jaw tight with impatience. I quickly tucked the journal and key back into their hiding place, composing myself before unlocking the door. Well, if it isn't the curator of cobwebs, he quipped, breezing past me. I brought some interested buyers. They're thinking luxury condos. 2 men in sharp suits followed him, already scanning the space like vultures. One pulled out a tablet, talking about demolition permits and square footage. The basement would be perfect for parking, he said, tapping the screen. Original blueprints show it's mostly unused. A chill ran through me. If they started digging down there. The gallery isn't for sale, I said calmly. Julian's smile vanished. Don't be ridiculous, Claire. This place can't even cover the electric bill. I said no. He stepped closer, voice dropping. I get that you're nostalgic. But it's time to grow up. Take the money, walk away. I held his gaze. Like you did, cashed in, contributed nothing, and called it earning? Color rose in his cheeks. I earned my inheritance. You wasted yours chasing Grandpa's fairy tales. It out, I said quietly. All of you. You're making a mistake, he warned. I'll risk it. As the door shut behind them, my pulse was racing. Julian wouldn't back down easily. He never did. I hurried back to the journal and reread the plans. The vault was hidden behind a false wall in the basement's northwest corner. I descended the stairs, flashlight in hand. The concrete walls looked ordinary until I felt it. A faint ridge. A hairline opening. The key slid in. My hands shook as I turned it in the precise sequence. Something shifted. If you're as curious as I am about what lies behind that hidden wall, don't forget to subscribe. This story is only just beginning, and trust me, what's coming next will change everything. 3/4 right, 1/4 left, then right again. For a moment, nothing. Then a soft click, followed by a low mechanical hum. The false wall eased open in silence, revealing a steel door embedded in the concrete, sleek, cold, and guarded by an electronic keypad. I was ready for this. Grandpa Walter had prepared me. The code was a date, but in his peculiar format. The day the original Whitaker Gallery opened. 19,650,412. I entered it slowly. The door hissed open. A wave of crisp, climate-controlled air rolled out. Lights flickered on in sequence, revealing a space that should not have existed beneath a crumbling gallery. The vault was vast. Framed paintings stood in pristine rows, encased in custom-sealed glass. Sculptures rested on pedestals, their curves and contours catching the soft light. Locked display cabinets lined the far wall, filled with ancient scrolls, rare sketches, and items I recognized instantly from museum archives and textbooks. In the center of it all, a simple desk. On it, a letter. With trembling fingers, I opened it. My dearest Claire, Welcome to the True Whitaker collection. What you see here represents more than my life's work. It's the legacy of a quiet movement to protect beauty when the world tried to erase it. The letter continued, explaining the history of the vault, how some pieces had been safeguarded from war, theft, censorship, or corporate greed. Many were not his to sell, but to protect, until the time was right. Then came the final note. In the back room, you'll find a private collection, legal, documented, yours. Use it to fund the mission. Trust your heart, Claire. The art will guide you. With all my love, Grandpa Walter. I sat for hours, overwhelmed. In the private collection Grandpa Walter had mentioned, I found dozens of carefully curated works, pieces by artists whose reputations had soared over the decades. Even with modest estimates, their combined value exceeded $100 million, 0 cents. But it wasn't the wealth that made my throat tighten. It was the trust. The quiet, deliberate way my grandfather had prepared me for this moment. Even when I didn't realize it, a soft buzz interrupted my thoughts. My phone screen lit up, multiple missed calls from Julian. One new message blinked on the screen. "This isn't over. You're making a huge mistake." I looked around the vault at the priceless history he would have bulldozed without a second glance, and I smiled. For the first time since inheriting the gallery, I didn't feel lost. I felt chosen. I locked the vault, returned upstairs, and stepped into a space full of purpose. There was work to do. Renovations, security upgrades, and, above all, a legacy to protect. Julian had been right about one thing. This wasn't over. But he didn't know what he was up against. While he schemed for condos and commissions, I was guarding a quiet resistance. One stitched together by artists, refugees, and forgotten heroes. I whispered, "Thank you, Grandpa Walter. I won't let you down." In the weeks that followed, the gallery transformed. I brought in trusted contractors, each one bound by strict confidentiality agreements. The basement was declared environmentally restricted to keep nosy city officials away. Every night, I pored over Grandpa's journal, learning each piece's journey. Some works were rescued from Nazi looting, others hidden during more recent wars. Each had records, files, stories. Julian didn't back off. First came legal threats, letters claiming mismanagement. I handed them to my attorney, retained quietly with funds from one small legal sale. Then he tried to choke off utilities and insurance. I countered every move. But the real test came one rainy Tuesday morning. Julian stood at the gallery's door with two men in tailored coats. "These gentlemen," he said, "are from the Portland Historical Commission." His smile was sharp, almost rehearsed. "They're very interested in examining the building's original foundation, concerns about structural integrity." I saw through the act immediately. These men weren't with any historical commission. The way they moved, the way their jackets hung heavy over their sides. These were hired enforcers. Private security, maybe even former law enforcement. "The gallery is closed for renovations," I said firmly. "Any inspections need to go through the proper channels." One stepped forward. "We have authorization." "Leave," I cut in, "or I call the real authorities." They hesitated. Then, slowly, they filed out. Julian lingered. "What are you hiding, Claire? There's something down there, isn't there? Something Grandpa Walter left behind." I stared at him. "The only thing I'm protecting is the gallery's future. Why can't you just accept that?" His expression darkened. "Because I know you. You were always his favorite. Always listening to his stories. The clue was always there, Julian. You just never cared enough to see it." That night, I knew I had to move quickly. Julian was getting reckless, and reckless people make dangerous mistakes. I spent hours in the vault, cataloging everything. Then I made 3 calls. One to an old colleague at the FBI's art crime team, another to a contact at Interpol, and a third to a world-renowned expert in art repatriation. 2 days later, Julian made his move. It was nearly midnight when I heard the faint creak of the basement door. The security feed showed 3 men, hooded, gloved, and armed with specialized equipment. Julian wasn't with them, but his fingerprints were all over this. I calmly triggered the silent alarm. Not the gallery's standard system, but the one wired straight to law enforcement. Then I descended into the basement. They barely acknowledged me. "Looking for something?" I asked. "Walk away, lady," one muttered. "This doesn't concern you." "Actually," I smiled, "it concerns me a great deal. So do the federal agents currently surrounding the building." Right on cue, a voice thundered from above. "FBI, this is a federal art crimes investigation. Don't move." What happened next was chaos, brief, precise, and final. The intruders were arrested. Julian, traced through their phones, was detained at home. And the truth? It was all in the search warrants. His hired men, his schemes for the gallery, even his links to black market collectors who trafficked in stolen art were all exposed. But the real reckoning came the following morning. I'd arranged a private gathering at the gallery. Representatives from world-renowned museums, cultural heritage foundations, and international governments arrived quietly, their curiosity piqued by my invitation. Together, we descended into the vault. As the lights came on, gasps filled the air. Emotions overflowed. Curators wept openly as they recognized works long believed destroyed. Paintings smuggled out of war zones, manuscripts once deemed lost to history, sculptures that had vanished decades ago. Museum directors embraced. Phone cameras clicked. Eyes widened in disbelief. I handed over everything. Grandpa Walter's meticulous records, the provenance of each piece, his detailed accounts of how every item had come into his care. Over the next year, the Whitaker Gallery would become known not for what it owned, but for what it returned. Each piece was repatriated, every story honored. The gallery gained international acclaim as a center for truth, ethics, and preservation. Claire Whitaker, once the overlooked granddaughter, now stood as the quiet force behind it all. Julian watched it unfold from behind bars. Evidence seized from his home linked him to other trafficking rings. He lost his freedom, his reputation, and his last claim to the family legacy. As for the gallery, I used a portion of Grandpa Walter's legal private collection to establish the Whitaker Foundation for Cultural Preservation. The gallery was restored to its former architectural beauty, moldings polished, lights streaming through tall windows, and reopened as a hub for education and artistic advocacy. On the one-year anniversary of the vault's discovery, I stood in the new main hall. The first exhibit? Not masterpieces, but works by local Portland artists, just like Grandpa once showcased when he first opened these doors. In my office, formerly Grandpa Walter's retreat, I keep two things on my desk: his leather-bound journal, and a clipping from the day Julian was sentenced. Not out of spite, but as a reminder. True value isn't about what you take, it's about what you protect. The gallery still bears the Whitaker name, but now it stands for more than family. It stands for history, for justice, for legacy. Some nights, when the halls are quiet, I think about that first moment. Kneeling beside the old desk, brushing away dust, nearly giving up, and I whisper, "Thank you, Grandpa. I see it now." The vault is empty, its contents returned to their rightful homes, but the chamber remains, a silent guardian ready to protect again if ever needed. And when a young artist walks through our doors, eyes wide with wonder, I share Grandpa's favorite words. True value isn't always visible at first glance. Sometimes the greatest treasures hide in plain sight. They think I'm talking about art. But really, I'm talking about this place, about legacy, and about a woman once seen as a disappointment, who became a guardian of history. The Whitaker Gallery stands tall in downtown Portland, no longer forgotten, no longer silent, and neither am I. If my story moved you, I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment, tell me what you would have done in my shoes, or simply send a word of encouragement. Your voice matters. And remember, sometimes the things that seem worthless at first glance carry the most meaning. Trust your instincts, protect what matters, and don't be afraid to uncover your own hidden legacy. Let's keep this conversation going, together.